welcome to episode 11 of Connecting Clarkston. Today, Katie and I are excited to talk to Jessica Dupnack from Fox 2, but also has a connection to Clarkston, which we're excited to learn about. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you. This is fun being on the other side of things.
Well,
I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to this.
It's so funny because I was like, we got to be careful. We got to be on our toes. This could switch at any moment. She could start interviewing us.
Yeah, I'm pretty
She's
good.
a
I've gotten
reporter.
pretty good of switching things up. Watch out.
We got to be on our toes. So I'm excited to chat with you and start off by telling us your connection to Clarkston.
Yeah, sure. So I moved to Clarkston from kind of the airport area, New Boston, when I was 6 years old. It was my grandparents' house on Whipple Lake over off Sashaba. My mom had lived out here since she was like 17, 18 years old, and my parents bought their house. And so I've gone first grade to, graduating from Clarkston High School.
So I also grew up on Whipple Lake.
Yeah, exactly. I know, it's crazy.
So
That is crazy.
Did you go to Bailey Lake?
I did go to Bailey. I'm a bulldog.
Yeah.
There's still bulldogs.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I still know the song. So, and my mom still lives here, so I still definitely claim Clarkston as home, but, don't tell my husband that.
Where do you live now?
Yeah. We live in Livonia. And it's great. It's nice being closer kind of to Detroit and all the fun little towns that way, but I'm out here a lot,
Awesome.
Yeah, I love it here.
Is your husband from Livonia, that area?
So he is from Romulus, actually. He was a detective in Allen Park for years. He actually just retired a year ago. So he's living that retiree life.
Well, I know you guys, that sounds amazing.
It is. He highly recommends it for sure. Yeah.
This is today we're announcing we're retiring.
Yeah.
So based on your husband's recommendation. Let's
funny.
do that. But you guys were talking beforehand about how you met him. Can we just hear that story?
Yeah, it's a good one. So he was the public information officer at Allen Park PD as well as a detective. So deals with all the media and actually kind of, tongue in cheek, but we met at a crime scene, which was very interesting. It was on St. Patty's Day. I was about to go home and I got called on breaking news and I was like, no, I just want to go home, maybe have a cocktail myself, being, St. Patty's Day. And we got out there and he had just left the gym and he was looking good and I was distracted and so I asked him out and don't let him tell me otherwise. So, and then
Nice.
he's
That's a good
literally
story.
been inseparable ever since. So
that's a great
it's
story.
been
So
fun.
how many years have you been married?
Well, 2 years, but
Okay.
we've been together, close to 5 years, and I had inherited 2 bonus sons, and so that's been
Nice.
interesting.
Nice.
I was thrust into teenage life, which is very
Oh, man.
interesting.
Oh man.
Interesting is a good
We
way to
both
describe
stressed
it.
into teenage
Yeah.
life. I mean,
Yeah.
that's challenging.
It was a lot where there's a bit of an age difference between me and my husband. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, we got teenagers now. Great. All right, cool. Yeah, so it's been a learning curve, but very fun nonetheless.
That's like a whole episode.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's talk about teenagers.
It's a sitcom at our
Yeah.
house. I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
I bet.
So.
Well, how did you, let's back up a minute. How did you get into reporting and
Yeah.
how did this all happen?
I've always been a big news family. We always watched the news at home. It was always on. So just kind of, I think, being indoctrinated a little bit. And then I did what I was good at. I was a good writer. That was pretty much it. I couldn't do math, science, just forget about it. But so I'm like, you know what, I got to do this writing thing. And I did want to go into newspaper. I think I told you guys. But a little bit of a dying art, especially in 2007-ish when I graduated. So I went to MSU and went into journalism. But like I said, I wanted to do print. And my professors, thankfully, Bob Gould, shout out, wherever you are, he was like, you should do broadcast. There's a little more sustainability in it. And I was okay on camera. And that's sort of how the path started.
And you're now at Fox 2, but where did you start? Like, what was the path to get there?
So I've been very lucky because in this business you move around quite a bit, and I think I'm one of the only ones that's been able to stay in Michigan my whole career, which has been important. My family's pretty much number one, so I always wanted to be at least a car ride away. But I started up in Cadillac at 9 and 10 News, so that's a fun place when you're 21 to live.
Woo! Talk about retirees.
Lots of nightlife.
I think we partied at like the Holiday Inn bar.
Yeah.
That was like the big night. But it was, you know what, it's definitely molded you when you're out because you start off in this business doing what's called like an MMJ. So you film all your own stuff and you report. So you're schlepping, 70 pounds of camera equipment all through the UP and whatever.
Alone.
It's
You
all
filmed it alone.
Yes.
Oh.
Wow.
So that's how it all started. Then I got yanked to the anchor desk pretty early on, so I was lucky. I did a 4.5-hour morning show for a few years there.
4.5 hours.
4.5 hours.
Wow.
It was a
What
journey.
in the world?
And then I moved to Flint, and I was lucky enough to be there during kind of a crazy time with the water crisis and everything. So
Yeah, I want to hear more about that because I read that about you, and I'm like, that has been, I mean, what a story
Still
to
ongoing.
cover.
Yeah.
Right, still ongoing.
Still ongoing,
So
yeah.
many layers, and I mean, what was that like?
Well, I kind of got thrust into it. I was hired as the crime reporter there, which they still have like a beat reporter, which is crazy. It's kind of unheard of to have somebody, but there's so much that goes on in Flint. And then it kind of morphed into this water crisis coverage, which was just unprecedented. And I think that for me, I'll never have a story like that. I mean, that was a career high and low in so many ways, you know. But yeah, that was wild to cover and just see it unfold and just be really one of the first people to know the intricacies and some of the cover-ups and stuff like that. I mean, it was fascinating, and those poor people, lied to their faces by so many officials, and poisonous water in America. It's just kind of unfathomable.
The legal end of that, has that wrapped up yet?
Well, it's gone back and forth at the state level. Yeah, I mean, there were charges against some of the officials, then the charges got dropped. I mean, I think that we knew all along that people would walk.
Oh, yeah.
Those white collar crimes, it's just these guys walk. And I say guys, gals too, but I mean, I don't think that the lawsuits, the civil suits have wrapped up and there's been some money delegated out. Because of the water crisis and just all the attention on Flint, I got to do a pretty cool documentary that's on Netflix called Flint Town. Yes. And I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, but put it on the list. I'm of course biased, duh. Yeah. But it's really good. It's all about the crime, it kind of switching from the water crisis. There's a sort of underbelly of just kind of chaos in that town and just lack of police officers. And this documentary crew from New York, they're amazing. They came in and I was kind of consulting behind the scenes and they're like, do you want to be in this documentary? I'm like, absolutely. So I get to kind of be a little more real and raw than you see on TV and swear and stuff like that.
Swear. Is this the one? I feel like I saw it. It features the police department?
Yes, so it's a few years old, but it's funny, it recirculates, on the algorithm. And I get emails and messages from all over the world from that documentary. Wow. It's pretty amazing. Cool. So Flint definitely put me in a very good trajectory to where I am today, and I really kind of cut my chops a little bit reporting wise and just learning how to navigate urban environments, and it's very different than Clarkston, Flint, Detroit. We're sort of in this bubble a little bit in Clarkston and growing up here, and so when you go to a town like that that's gritty and there's a lot of systemic issues, it kind of makes you grow up real quick.
Yeah. How do they handle safety for you guys?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's me and a photographer, at least it was in Flint and Detroit. Kind of the motto is, if you don't feel safe and you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. Everyone's threshold for what's safe and not safe is a little different. Mine's probably pretty high at this point. But yeah, I mean, there was a situation maybe 6 months ago where we were shooting some video on Detroit's West Side, and a guy came up to me, made a comment, which isn't totally out of the ordinary. You see a camera, you want to come, you come to it like a moth to a flame, right? And he came up and tried to put his hands on me, and I did a little bit of a move that I didn't know that I had. And he walked away, but that was a little scary. That was a close one, when we had to report it and stuff like that. But as far as, security, there were some political events that I've done where they hire like outside security in the field because I don't got to tell you the political climate and how things can go. But yeah, so that's kind of how it's handled. You just got to be on a swivel, and I think it's more so about reading people and kind of being able to assess, okay, is this a threat? Is this not? And, you know, for the most part, knock on wood, you know, people are pretty cool, and you know, if they're not, we get out of there.
I would think too, having the camera there, you know, like, okay,
Sure.
Everything's going to be on
Right.
film.
Yeah.
There's that part of it too,
Yes.
you know. But I think that's, you know, the last couple of years I've noticed people are a little more emboldened than they have been in the past, and
Yeah.
you know, I would say I'm a little more head on a swivel now than I ever have
I bet.
been, just
Yeah.
because, you know, I think people are a little bit unhinged sometimes lately. So
100%.
The world's crazy.
yes, exactly.
If you get like an assignment, can you say I'm not comfortable going, or is it kind of like you
You
gotta
know,
go where they send you?
I mean, at this point, I've covered crime so much that there's very few situations that make me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's more so go out there, assess the situation. You know, I've done plenty of like drive-bys. Like, all right, we're just gonna keep on keeping on. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's very few things that I'll say no to. I don't know if I've ever said no to a
Really?
story. Yeah.
Well, they're not going to willingly send you into, I guess, an extremely
Yeah.
dangerous situation. I would
Sure.
imagine they assess it first, but
You know
the
what?
stories
It's a
are-
little looser than what I think people think, and I think that especially for me, I've kind of proven myself to the point where I kind of run my own show to a
Okay.
certain degree.
Yeah.
You know, the bosses at Fox 2 are they're great in letting me say, okay, Dupnack, go do your thing, you know,
Yeah.
and you report back to us. And that comes with just experience and doing this a million years now, it
Yeah.
feels like, and getting to know a lot of the police departments and stuff like that. And they help navigate me too a little bit and say, like, are you crazy being out there, you know? So I rely on my guys at the departments to kind of help me out too, so.
We have heard from numerous people about your love of animals.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. I feel like
Yeah.
recently I saw you like rescue a cat.
Yeah, I'm up to a lot of rescues. I actually carry an animal rescue kit with me in the field with snacks and leashes and water and that kind of thing. Yeah, because starting in Flint, I'd run into so many strays all the time and not have the equipment to do
Right.
it. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many dogs, cats, birds. Recently, the most recent one you're referencing was in Macomb County in Sterling Heights. We were headed that way on Van Dyke, which is like it's like a Dixie highway,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And little kitty in the median.
Aw.
I spotted it. The photographer that I rope in, Todd Brangen, he knows exactly what to do in these situations now. I've trained him well. He was not really an animal person before me. And we jumped into mode and we grabbed it. And I walked into an interview at Sterling Heights Police and I have this cat with me. I'm all dirty. They're like, what is going on? I'm like, all right, we're going to do the interview, but we got to help this cat first. So,
Oh my gosh.
so yeah, it's been nice to be able to, in this job, kind of my pet project, if you will, is to help and rescue.
Yeah.
And I'm very tied in with the Detroit Dog Rescue and Detroit Pit Crew. Those are some rescues down in Detroit, and they always take my call. So yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah,
So cool.
It's
Well,
neat.
so we've talked some about the, I don't know, maybe seedier parts of what reporting is.
Yeah,
but
sure.
What are some of the, what's the other side of that?
Yeah, so you know what, to be able to be a voice and to have a platform to help people is not lost on me how lucky I am. You know, a story that sticks out recently is a woman who she saved her son from a burning apartment, and in all of that fell out of the window and had just severe head trauma. You know, her life is upside down, very serious physical impairments from all of that, and she saved her son and her dogs and the whole thing. The dogs, of course, you know, got my attention too. But I was able to do a story and raised, you know, through her GoFundMe page, you know, $15,000 or something. And that's one of the lower ones. I mean, we do those stories all the time, and it's so exciting to me when I can go home and I'm in bed and I'm like watching the
What's it up to?
GoFundMe. Brandon, like
Yeah.
that stuff is
Yeah.
just so, that's what we do this for. And, you know, sometimes media gets a bad rap, and, you know, I'm not saying there's not bad folks in this business, but you know, so many of us just want to tell good stories and help people, and I've been so lucky to be able to do that. And you know, that's what brings it all home when you talk about the awful stories, the stuff that, you know,
Right.
the kids and you know, there's so much bad news out there, but the good stories are what keeps you getting up in the morning and going
Being
in
able to
and
help.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's really good to hear. I mean, I think that it's become so sensationalized. And,
Sure.
you know, like the 24-hour news cycle, and let's get the
Yeah.
attention of people with all these
Yeah.
horrific things.
Sure.
there's a lot of good out there, and it's really
There
cool
is.
that that's kind of what sustains you.
And I think it's important, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox, but there is a difference between local news and network news.
Yes.
There is still a pure form of news out there, and I see it as being local news. And again, I'm not saying there's not issues in the industry, but you know what? People think that there's such a slant in local newsrooms, and it's a very mixed bag. I tell you what, you walk into the newsroom, you've got every, race, gender, political views. I mean, it is really a mixed bag, and everyone contributes to that cause. And
That's so interesting that you're saying that,
Yeah.
because so in the dental office that I work, we have TVs. And I was
Sure.
actually just talking to Lori Fitney about this.
Yeah.
Because all of the channels were up, and we were talking about Fox 2 and all. And I was saying, like, sometimes I feel like people will come in and be like, oh, I don't want to watch Fox 2
Sure.
because they associate it with.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so that's interesting to hear you say that it is just like this very diverse group.
It is, and it's ironic because the news stations that you think are one way may even be a little bit the other way, and so it's a misconception. But I think for the most part, local news really does try to stay down the middle, report the facts as much as possible. I know that I can speak, only for myself really, but when I go out in a situation, regardless of my views, I have no viewpoint when I go out into the field. I don't bring anything with me, and for the most part, even in life, I really try to stay down the middle, because I think that for me, being a journalist comes first than my own maybe personal opinions, and I'm kind of a purist that way. And
well, I know we were just talking about that too, but the fact that Ann and I don't have like super similar political views either, but it does feel like the world needs more of that, just discussions and information that's not slanted.
We need less opinions sometimes.
Well, that's just it. It's like it's not my job to tell you what my opinion is. I'll let my husband or my mom or somebody else in the family hear something about that. It's not my place. And I think that for the most part, at least a lot of the journalists that I've come in contact with here and elsewhere, that's their goal too.
Well, and I think too, when you're talking local versus national, is that what? Am I saying that?
Yes.
I mean, everybody that's on local news lives in the community.
And that's it too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And especially, it's nice. I know this place inside and out because I'm from here. And there's a lot of people in Detroit market that same thing. They're here because it's home. You want to represent your home in an appropriate and fair way.
Right.
So
when you talk about like local markets versus national, is that it sounds like you're rooted here, you're staying here. Are there any ambitions to like get to the national level?
There was a time where network was an option, where I would have maybe liked it to be an option, but those correspondents, they travel like 250 days a year. You got a home base, but you're just at the drop of a hat going, and as I said, my family is so important, and I would have trouble being kind of a vagabond reporter, but they do a great job, and what an exciting life, if that's what gets you going, which is for sure gets me going. But I stay pretty busy in the Tri-County area here, so I think I'll stay put for a while. Yeah.
Is it so? Speaking of the scheduling, I'm curious about. Can they call you anytime? Hey, there's a story at 2 a.m. What is your schedule like?
I think a good example. Well, first of all, I'm coming off a 10-day stretch, so that's it can be wild. I filled in on the morning show, so I've been bopped around
I think
a little
originally
bit.
we talked to you were Monday through Friday, but then I think Saturday morning, I was like, oh look, there you are.
They've been giving me some anchoring opportunities, which has been pretty fun to kind of flex that muscle, because it's very different, especially a morning show compared to the hard news that I cover in the field. But like MSU, for example, that's a situation that kind of talks about scheduling. I got a tip that the shooting at MSU had happened, and my phone just started blowing up, and I was sitting there in the living room, had a glass of wine that I hadn't started quite yet, and I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go. And I called Todd, photographer that I work with all the time. I'm like, we're going. We didn't even ask for permission at that point. We're like, we'll ask permission later, and we got on 96 from Livonia and headed west.
How does that work, that other people don't do the same thing, and you show up and there's multiple, or does that happen?
Not everyone's nuts like me.
Okay.
So that's why not everyone's like that. So we got in the car, I asked permission, I'm like, hey, we're going, and they're like, the more the merrier. I mean, you just kind of get a sense of this is not going to be good. This is not, and it wasn't good at all. And we got there, and it was the right call to jump in the car and go. And it was, you know, they needed all the help they could get at that point. So that was, yes. So to answer your question in a long way, yeah. I mean, if there's something wild, or when the school shooting in Oxford happened, and the parents were on the run in Detroit after this happened. They were, you know, later charged with manslaughter. But yeah, I got same thing. I was like, I'm gonna go. I just gotta be there. I gotta go, and you know.
So it sounds like a lot of it is like you're keeping track and you drive it.
Yeah, I kind of can't shut it off. Yeah, I kind of can't. Yeah, I can't shut it off. But yeah, there's a lot of self-induced work that goes on.
Is that like, are you just so motivated by that, or is that really how reporters? Is that how it is?
I would say that not everybody's like that. No,
No, okay.
I would say that, and it's not. You know, it's a blessing and a curse, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard for me to shut it off, especially, you know, most of the stuff that I do, 99% of the stuff I do is crime stuff, and so that doesn't ever really end, no matter where you live.
True.
You know, whether it's, you know, small crime, big crime,
Yeah.
and so for me, it's hard to shut off. And you know, I think that people have come to rely on me for those kind of stories. Like, oh, well, you know, I've had so many people say, oh, when her face comes on the TV, I know it's about to be something crazy that's going on. So I mean, it's a fine reputation to have. I'm okay with it. I'm all right with it.
Well, it's obvious you're passionate about it. It's really cool.
It is.
And that, I mean, you're going to do good work because that's what's
when
driving
you love
you.
something, you're gonna do that much better at it. So.
But you do some anchoring,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
So I started my career when I was in Cadillac anchoring. I did the morning show. So I've kind of have a little bit of a split role. I do like anchoring though. It's kind of fun. It's nice to be able to smile on TV sometimes. And, so it's fun. It's a different, like I did the morning show recently, you know, with Liz Lewin and Charlie Langton, and it's fun to be able to like have a snack and you know, just it's a different, it's just very different. I like it. They both, anchoring and reporting, they're both very important to the business. And yeah, I think that the goal is to maybe integrate both, do kind of like a split schedule in some capacity. So that's that's what the goal would be eventually. You know, I don't know that I'll have the tenacity to keep running and gunning forever and ever out in the streets. Maybe I'm wrong, but but yeah.
That's very cool. So I'm thinking about if I was a high schooler, let's say, and I'm thinking about getting into the industry. Like, do you have advice for young kids who are potentially interested?
It would be nice if more people would get into the business. There is a bit of a shortage, I think. Not so much of on-air people, because there's, you know, it's cool to be on TV and people like that, right? But kind of the behind-the-scenes people, you know, the producers and photographers and that kind of thing. I mean, I think I've noticed a little bit of a disinterest in the business. So I think that, you know, it's a very, very cool job. And if you're kind of like an adrenaline-y person and, you know, want to not have a typical 9 to 5, it's a really good opportunity. So I'll say, you know, when I was getting into the business, I think that, you know, kind of in 2007, 2010, it was, there was kind of a dying interest because everyone said, there's not going to be news anymore.
Right.
Well, you know, we're X amount of years later, there's still news. It's changed, you know, don't get me wrong. But I would say, you know, watch the news. That's the biggest thing. Watch it and read it. You know, you have to immerse yourself in it to start getting it in your brain. Yep, exactly. So I would say that, and you know, I went to MSU, Central Michigan's another really good school for broadcast and journalism. I think those two in the state, if you're looking to stay, you know, aim for those, and you know, email real journalists. We're on social media. We're very accessible. Mentoring is a huge part of what we do, and don't be afraid to just shoot off an email or message on Instagram or whatever, and just say, hey, what's your advice? Tell me. And I've done that many a time, and I'm happy to do it. So
I also wonder, I wonder if Independence Television was here when you were here. I wonder if it was here when I was here.
Yeah,
John, I don't know if you can shout that through the glass.
Yeah, I don't.
Go ahead.
10 years?
10 years?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so good. I feel better. I didn't forget
Yeah.
about it. But
So we filmed this in Independence Television, and I feel like that's probably a really nice opportunity for a lot of kids in Clarkston.
I would have, you know, it would have been interesting to me, although I thought I was like too cool or something in high school. But
Probably most of us were.
exactly.
Well, they just
a
finished
little lost, but
they have their the media camp that they do for kids
Yeah.
in the summer. So, I mean, there is a little bit of a feeder program
Sure.
maybe here.
Yeah.
Getting that interest built up.
Right. It's all about hands-on, I think, in this business. You've got to do it to get good at it and make those embarrassing mistakes that I've made.
Oh my gosh, I always wanted to ask like reporters, the blooper reels
Oh,
are
yeah.
just golden.
So
They're
good.
so
I
hilarious.
know, and I
Do you
need to
have
do
any,
better at
like-
that. Making a blue. Oh yeah, there's a million.
Yeah. Are they-
How many times I say the F word before I nail it on, we do pre-recorded stuff.
man.
Yeah.
And the bugs. I've seen so many
yeah.
of those.
Yeah, I had
Oh,
one
man.
last summer that did pretty good on social media. I got stung by a bee
Oh,
while we were pre-recording something, and it got in my dress, and I was
my
you know,
gosh.
"Ah!"
Oh
the
my
whole
God.
thing. Yeah. So it's on my
That's so
Instagram
great.
if you're interested.
That's so
but yeah,
funny.
yeah.
We will be looking that up.
People will literally in the field, they'll be like, "You're the bee lady." I'm like, "That's me, great, awesome."
Well, when you talk about social media too, and the internet and all that, like,
Yeah.
how has all the online stuff changed news? Changed, very traditional news?
I think that the appetite, for news, and this is where, I put it back on the people, if you will. People always say, it's all about blood and gore and this, that, and the other. Well, what are they interested in? True crime.
Cats and
They're
dogs.
interested in cats and dogs. But that's what I mean. It's like,
Yeah.
people always criticize the media, and it's like, well, what is your appetite?
Yeah.
You don't want to pay attention very long because you're so used to scrolling. So I think it's changed just the appetite for news. And so we've had to kind of shift a little bit. Our stories are shorter because, again, you're not looking to tune in for a 10-minute story. You want
Fast.
you want
good point.
fast, right?
Yeah.
So that's changed sort of the traditional concept. And then, we are required to have, a pretty strong online presence, whether it's online through our website or just our own personal pages and that kind of thing. And I was pretty resistant to that. I wasn't a huge social media person until about a year ago. And I saw some other, women in the industry my age that are doing really well with all the followers. And I'm like, I see how this is going. I gotta keep up. So there's a little bit of pressure there.
It's kind of like a necessary evil
It
at
is,
this point.
yeah,
like
it
Ian
is.
avoiding social media at all costs.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's also like this very easy way to connect and share information, and it's not going anywhere.
It's not.
That's true.
It's. But I was kind of like you. I was a little bit resistant. I didn't want that, and it is time consuming, and it's a little bit. It can become a little addicting, and but it's part of our world, and at Fox 2 we're adding some streaming because that's the other thing. So you'll have your traditional newscast, but then you'll be streaming kind of a more of an informal newscast on our website.
We were just talking about that because we're looking at starting something kind of similar too.
Yeah, and so that's the next evolution, and really I think you're going to find, and I don't know how I feel yet about this, but you're going to see local news in a 24-hour news cycle because again, that's people's demands. People don't carry, you don't wake up at 7 a.m. and go to sleep at 9 anymore. It's just people want it 24/7.
Well, and I think too, you're seeing people pop up and fill the void in other ways. So I think it's either, the news station does
You're very
that
right.
or, Ann and I start doing,
it's
just joking. But
there is something to be said. I mean,
Yeah.
all these like Instagram news,
Yes.
Right.
or agencies, if you will. I mean, they're filling the holes where
Yeah.
people, and it's we got.
I don't know that it's healthy, and I'm not saying it's good. I do think people need to step away and detach, and it shouldn't be a 24-hour thing.
I agree.
But
and I think it's important, while on the topic, to just touch about, there is a difference between us and people that post on Instagram and claim to be news.
Right.
We have training and standards and legal responsibility. And when you're affiliated with a Fox, an ABC, an NBC, there are standards there, and it's very different. And so,
just citizen
don't believe everything you
popping
see
up
on social media. And there is a huge difference. And I think it's important to know that we have some.
and you want people going to the reputable sources.
Sure, I think
not
that,
just getting
yes, absolutely. And I think
it's the same with the internet too,
Yes,
right? There's sites you can
right.
trust and Wikipedia. Yeah.
Well, and you put yourself personally out there. We were saying with your Instagram, that's kind of part of it. So I don't know if you were talking about this, if I overheard you guys chatting, but have you had people kind of get way too interested and because you're a public figure.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of unmentionable pictures that get sent our way, and I know I'm not the only one, and you know, people that won't let up, and you know, but it's one of those things. You don't realize, like, people think that they know you because they see you every day, and it's great on one hand. How lucky am I that all of these people, you know, but on the flip side, we know that can draw out some weird folks, and you just got to be a little bit careful. You know, for me personally, it's more so the kind of the crazy stories that I do and these very intricate, bizarre crime stories. You know, there's been a few times where we've had to call Livonia police and say, hey, this is my situation. I'm with Fox 2. This guy in this car seems threatening, and could you guys send some cars? And they're so happy to do it, which is very kind.
Well, and especially, I mean, there's always two sides to every story, right?
Yeah.
Probably the right side and the wrong side, but the wrong side does
there
not.
are nonetheless two sides, yes.
Yeah. So I could see that.
Yeah, so there's been a few times. My husband, though, is a police officer, so I'd like to think that he's savvy, although he's retired and maybe not as savvy as he once was. But yeah, we just are a little bit extra aware, you know, especially if it's kind of a hot button story or something like that's going on. But yeah, so
very cool.
That's cool. Speaking of stories, so you've talked about the Flint water crisis. Are there a couple that are your very favorite that you have reported on over the years?
Man, I mean, the water crisis for sure. There was a story recently about a jeweler that was murdered in the Detroit area, Dan Hutchinson, and that was kind of a story that I will never ever forget. We uncovered some pretty crazy backstory, and it was like a made-for-TV movie. And those stories, you know, it's like stranger than fiction sometimes, some of the stuff that we uncover, and you kind of can't believe it. You're like, no way. No way. Another one that was kind of a crazy one that sticks out was actually in Shiawassee County, a pretty awful situation with some cannibalism. I know I'm like bringing the mood down, but yeah, we had some heavy stuff. Unfortunately, those are the memorable ones. But like I said earlier, so many good like dog saving stories, and you know, another really cool one that sticks out was a dog that got hit right in front of us on the Southfield Freeway, and we jumped out and we rescued her, and it was like a whole dramatic scene on the highway, and she got rehomed, and we got to like follow along the process, and so that was pretty cool. So there's, you know, for every crazy, disgusting story, there's, you know, a couple good ones that follow. So.
Like the humanity comes back
Exactly,
out.
yes, exactly.
Well, I don't know if you remember this. You're talking about jewelry stores. Do you remember there was a jewelry store here in Clarkston a few years ago?
Do you know that I was there?
You were at the jewelry store when it got broken into?
Okay, so I was driving to my uncle's birthday party. I had Jackson and Kennedy in the back of my minivan. We were right in front of Deer Lake Beach. All of a sudden, traffic just totally stopped. So where the cemetery is, right?
Yeah.
There's a car coming out of the cemetery. There's a truck coming towards us. Everybody's sitting there. I'm like, what's happening? All of a sudden, the truck drives into the car. A guy gets out of the car with a gun.
Oh my.
Is pointing the gun at the guy in the truck, is next to our car. I'm
and
yelling
you're like, what?
Yelling at the kids to get down. Jackson,
you are?
Yeah, Jackson gets down. Kennedy, of course, who never listens. Her 3-year-old little head. Because literally the guy could have gotten in my car. He was looking for somewhere to hide.
What year was this?
Like 10 years ago?
Less than 10.
Less than 10?
Because Kennedy was probably 3, so probably like 7 years ago. The car they had parked in the back of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Gone into the pawn shop to rob it.
Yeah.
I think shot the owner of the pawn shop.
Yeah.
Then went back to their car. Were trying to get away. Well, the pawn shop guy jumped in his truck, chased them down.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we could have used
this
you.
Is a
you
lot
what's
for
weird?
a little Clarkston
You know what's so
right
weird?
Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you the second part of that story is like he got out of his car
And
the
then
guy
ran across
the lake. My dad lives on the other side of the lake. He went into my dad's house, into my dad's garage.
Stop, look at this. Did you guys plan this?
No,
I feel like it's a coordinated story.
This is the weirdest thing ever. Wow. How bizarre was that connection? He
wait,
like
was your
rummaged.
dad there?
My dad, I think he was home but didn't know it. And like he rummaged through the car. He was looking for a car. So he like opened my dad's car in the garage, rummaged through, couldn't find the keys, left, went to across the street to the neighbor, I think stole their car.
We'll talk names later because I know who you're talking about. Whoa. That's insane.
How was, I didn't know you had to connect. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, we were right there. I had to talk to the police afterwards.
Same with my dad. He was on the news. I don't know if you were
I wasn't
reporting
on
It wasn't me. I wasn't in Detroit yet. But
oh, you weren't? Well, the whole reason I asked this story, but besides how funny the connection is,
crazy.
I was wondering if you've ever reported on stories up here in our neck of the woods.
When you told me that maybe you'd ask something like that, I was like thinking. I did one time, and it was a happy story. So good. I want to talk about
cannibalism.
Cannibalism. Yes, no more of that.
And guns.
I know. Sorry. I don't know. It was when Pine Knob, the 50th anniversary. I totally threw my hat in the ring when they renamed properly Pine Knob. Thank
Always
goodness.
Pine Knob.
Yeah, always. And I was like, I'm going. This is my story. And they were like, why do you want some happy,
like I lived 1 mile away.
Right. And I was like, no, I'm going. And I had kind of a cool connection. So my mom ran the box office. She was like the first box office manager 50 years ago.
Gosh, we love that box office.
Yes, exactly. And so she, it was like kind of like a little bit of nostalgia because she has all the crazy stories of like Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and sitting on the stage and Elton John and all these wild tales of Pine Knob back in the day. So it's been an important
Which I can't even imagine at that point, but I know, around high school years for me, there were always free tickets at the gas station.
Vouchers.
Yes, you went to tons of free concerts.
What a fun time.
It was amazing.
When I tell people that, they're like, vouchers? $10
$5,
vouchers?
right,
exactly.
Doesn't exist anymore.
That was fun. We'd go to 20 concerts.
You could easily sneak up into the pavilion, maybe front row.
Totally. Yeah.
For the Pointer Sisters.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe.
I did that for Pat Benatar, and they quickly they sent me back, and I was like,
it was
that
raining
moment.
and there weren't a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was a hill dweller. I liked hanging out, putting out the vibe.
Yeah.
On top of the hill.
Oh my gosh. Cool. Do you ever feel that pull to come back to this area? Are you firmly in the Livonia?
You feel it. The lake, does the lake call you?
Yeah, my mom's got some acres, so I'm just kind of thinking maybe we make a little homestead over on the property. Yeah, I'd love to come back here. I mean, we deal with so much chaos in the city, and not that Detroit isn't beautiful and amazing, but when you're from here and you're used to a little bit of a quieter day-to-day, it's nice to get out of the bubble a little bit, and I think that I'll be back here someday. I think it'd be kind of cool. I never thought, right? Because when you're younger, you're like,
can't wait to
get away. Maybe a big city, so on and so forth, and then it's like things come totally full circle. So I think I'll be back.
You'll be back. Well, hopefully it's not to report on a terrible
heinous
crime.
No,
just to
something fun.
Enjoy.
Something fun. I do once in a while. I'll do a fun story.
There was a story recently, but I don't know what channel it was on or who was reporting on it about how people were stealing stuff from the gas station on 75 in Sashaba.
Yes.
Alcohol. Kids were going in and stealing alcohol.
Yeah, that's a move, right?
That's a move. I was there just the other day buying my obviously losing Mega Millions ticket.
Yeah.
So I did not win $1.5 billion. But I was thinking about that story as I'm walking in here. I'm like, okay, is this going to happen right
just
here?
out on the shelves?
No, weirdly, it's behind. I don't know.
How'd they get to it?
I don't know.
Literally walked back there. You could see the video. Just walked, grabbed it,
scooped it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, just take it. I'm not going to fight you for it.
Right? Yes. You know, cut your losses at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered enough of this crime. Just do whatever.
Sometimes
saves
you've
yourself.
gotta. That's just it. Weigh your options and let them take the booze.
Yeah, exactly. You need that more than.
And on that note.
I know. How do we end?
We gotta end on something better.
Can you transition that?
What's our up? Well, we do like to find little connections to Clarkston. Not that we're pressuring you to move back, but how fun would it be? But
it'd be great. I know.
We love to talk to people who have connections to our town, not necessarily who have to be here and embedded. But speaking of that, can you think of anybody that you'd like to recommend?
So I've been thinking
us?
about this, and I know I'm so biased. I'm such an obvious, but my mom was a really good one. I mean, the Pine Knob connection. She's lived here for 55 years. Our house, the property was an old farm. There's a grave on the farm of a. I know. Okay. So there's some cool, and I think she always tells me, and it's kind of an old person thing to do, but she's like, back in my my day, this is what Clarkston Clarkston was like, and it's so weird to see how things have transitioned. So she would be a good one. She's got some good ties. And
I love it. And her Pine Knob stories?
She's got great Pine Knob stories.
Yeah.
I know. I force her to tell me them because they're good stuff. But she's a good one, and I'll keep my eye out if there's any other Clarkston people. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I get people reaching out to me all the time from my past, from Clarkston. I saw it on the news, and that's a really fun part too of it all.
Cool.
So I'll keep my eye out for you guys.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you. This was
chatting with
fun.
us.
Being on the flip side.
We appreciate
you guys
it.
made it easy. I was a little nervous. But
Well, we tried not to have you flip it over, but you're really good at what you do.
I did
so
good. I stopped
It was
myself.
hard to resist. But thank you. We appreciate you.
Of course.
And thanks for
Anytime.
coming in.
This podcast is brought to you by Independence Television, located inside Clarkston High School. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Independence Television, Independence Township, or Clarkston Community Schools.